This is a 1948 Emerson 85641AN Roundnose antique ceiling fan, and this is my latest restoration. So I wanted to show you kind of how I went through this process, what I used. First, one note on the paint: I used Rustoleum Appliance Epoxy and Almond with universal bonding primer as the base, and that's sanded with spot putty. Used quite a bit on the castings, especially the top, to get all those imperfections reasonably smoothed out. So one cool thing is this motor you're seeing here, I got it really thinking it would just be a parts motor. It was so rough, it had 5 or 6 layers of old paint on it, lots of rust. It was an absolute nightmare to get it all stripped down to bare cast iron. Just because of how tough that paint was, I had to put the parts in an ultrasonic bath, except for this big top casting. Because I left the stator in place, I had to chip that all off by hand. Took a good probably 9 or 10 hours to do that and to get it all perfectly clean, all the little bits of paint out of there. But if you want to do it right, that's really the only way to do it, to get all the paint off and get it clean, get it primed, filled, sanded, and then top coated. And this particular paint, this appliance epoxy, once you spray it on, you really don't want to touch the fan for at least a day, preferably 2 days, because it takes a little bit extra time to set up versus your typical enamel paint. But anyways, this fan is going to be going on an outdoor covered patio at my neighbor's house here in Houston, Texas. And this that's one reason why I didn't use the Levelier pull chain. I used a new 3-speed chain, pull chain, with a 1-inch ID, 1-inch OD washer on the inside, 3/8 ID, 5/8 OD washer on the outside. That allows that pull chain to be sandwiched inside that hole, which is just a little bit big by itself. So that's how that works in there. And the blades are going to be laser cut in aluminum. My friend has access to a CNC machine. He already has the blade profile traced out in a DXF. So we're gonna have that done, and it's gonna have 15-degree irons pitched like this. You'd call them like reverse pitch irons, but the fan rotates clockwise to give downdraft. So because of that, you gotta make sure your hook is tight, and all of your fastening, your lock screws are tight against the down rod, so this fan doesn't conspire to unscrew itself and ruin your day. But anyways, let's go ahead and fire it up. High speed pulls about 1.72 amps, running at 121 volts line current. One thing you'll notice, this is a very quiet fan. Has a brand new bearing, even though it probably didn't really need it. I went ahead and swapped it in since I had one that's a Etna F6 or an Andrews or INA GT6 bearing. They're somewhat hard to find. They pop up from time to time. I think there's 1 or 2 on eBay right now. If you just search GT6 thrust bearing, it'll come right up. But yeah, serenely quiet, pretty efficient too. Here on medium, it's pulling about 1.45 amps. You can see I did the rotor in matte black, just because I think it looks a little bit nicer to have the vents stand out like that. And then low, about 1.21 amps. Super quiet. I really think these Roundnoses are the best ceiling fans made from a quality and a performance perspective. Just because their operating characteristics, they move a lot of air very quietly. They have such big, steeply pitched blades. They're very easy to oil. You have a huge oil port up top. You can just dump some oil in there and it goes on down in. You do have an oil drain plug here. It's pretty easy to get to if you ever want to do a flush. Like I said, very quiet, relatively efficient. I mean, they're really just excellent fans. They're not especially ornate or anything like that, but they kind of have an Art Deco style appearance. They hold a ton of oil, because one thing Emerson did with the Roundnose is they use the same style oil cup for the reversing one and the non-reversing one, which has a larger capacity than what they would have used in the past for the downdraft motors, since the rotors had a smaller part on the bottom where the bearing sits. Let's go ahead and do a coast down. I'm using some pretty thick Super Lube ISO 100 oil in this fan. It's I'm really doing that because I'm noticing when I use Zoom Spout in my antique fans, antique ceiling fans in particular, it's like it tends to evaporate, and after a couple of months, it's like the fan has no oil in it, even though it hasn't leaked anything. So yeah, I've started using that. It's quite a bit thicker, but still full synthetic and white. So yeah, here it is, and hopefully in the next month or two I'll have another video showing you the fan installed with the blades on. The blades will be matte almond aluminum. Should look really nice and really stir up some nice breezes on a porch here in Houston, Texas. All right, thanks for watching.